Have you ever wondered why the wind seems to cry on certain nights? What ancient tales are whispered through the trees of West Flanders? And who is the mysterious Alvina, whose name lingers in an old song of sorrow and longing? What has no body but carries voices, no hands but steers the trees, and no heart but feels eternal grief? The Low Country landscape is rich with folklore and legends, shaped by centuries of storytelling. Among these tales is the haunting story of Alvina, a princess from West Flanders. Her tragic love, betrayal and fate echo through time, carried by the winds themselves. This story intertwines with the region's cultural fabric, passed down through old songs and whispers, keeping her legacy alive. But who was Alvina and why does the wind cry her name? Ze, voel dat ik moet gaan vliegen in de winden, langs de wereld staat en nooit geen troost meer vinden. Adieu kinders, lieve vruchten, adieu man, die de oorzaak zijt. Een moeder moet voor eeuwig zuchten. Thus, feel that I must go fly in the winds, long the world state, and never find no more trump. Adieu, children, dear fruits. Adieu, man, who are the cause. A mother must sigh forever. Alvina, the beautiful princess betrayed by her own family, is said to cry through the wind, her voice heard in the eerie howls of storms. Alvina is a female ghost tied to a moral or emotional transgression, often involving betrayal, family violation, or a broken natural order. Her presence is not about horror, but about memory, justice, and imbalance. She represents the enduring consequence of acts that fracture community trust or sacred ties. Her haunting is a demand for recognition, closure, or retribution. The same narrative function and symbolic role can be found in the character of Snow White across regional retellings. Not as a ghost, but as a living revenant, a maiden wronged, silenced, and nearly erased, who returns or endures despite her symbolic death. Both Alvina and Margaretha are described or imagined as beautiful young women whose appearance becomes a curse. For Alvina, her beauty or purity might have drawn the attention of otherworldly beings, forest dwellers, wind spirits, or jealous forces, who remove her from the world of the living. She is taken, and what becomes of her is shrouded in magical uncertainty. In Margaretha's case, historical records suggest she may have been targeted at court, potentially poisoned due to political jealousies surrounding her beauty and noble ties. Rather than being stolen by spirits, Margaretha was consumed by human greed and power, but the result was similar. A young woman gone too soon, leaving behind only questions. In Margaretha's world, her father reportedly used child labor in his copper mines. These children, small, underfed, stunned by brutal labor, have sometimes been linked to the dwarfs of the Snow White tale. It's an eerie historical rhyme. Children or small beings toil in darkness, and the young woman's fate intersects with this shadowed world. Unlike the classic fairy tale, neither Alvina nor Margaretha receives resurrection. Alvina fades, she becomes part of the wind, the trees, a lingering sadness that never resolves. Her body might lie somewhere in the roots, or it might have vanished altogether. Her tale ends in stillness, not awakening. In the Brothers Grimm version, Snow White is essentially murdered by her stepmother and hidden in a glass coffin. Preserved, not buried. She lies outside time, untouched by decay, as if her very innocence and betrayal trap her between life and death. Like Alvina, she is bound to a liminal state, visible but unreachable. The forest and the dwarf's home become sacred ground, like the groves or homes Alvina haunts. Snow White's return to life is not just a happy ending, but the restoration of moral balance. The evil is punished, and the girl, like Alvina if she were ever released, is freed from her haunting. The forest and the dwarf's home become sacred ground, like the groves or homes Alvina haunts. Snow White's return to life is not just a happy ending, but the restoration of moral balance. The evil is punished, and the girl, like Alvina if she were ever released, is freed from her haunting. Pushkin's The Tale of the Dead Princess and the Seven Knights presents a version closer to the mystic Alvina. Here the Tsarevna is cast out by a jealous stepmother and dies. Her body is hidden in a coffin, watched by loyal knights. Unlike Grimm, Pushkin emphasizes the eternal mourning and the ritual care given to her corpse, a shrine to injustice. The Tsarevna's eventual resurrection and marriage mirrors a spirit's release, but her death transforms her first into her presence, a sacred memory. Like Alvina, her purity and unjust suffering haunt the world until they are set right. Her very stillness, like Alvina's silent hauntings, is a form of protest against betrayal. In Jacob's collected folklore, the story bears motives that reflect community and sovereignty. Snow White is not just a girl, but a symbol of rightful continuity. When she is attacked and cast into the wilderness, it is as if a rightful spirit, akin to Alvina, is driven from her place, and the land suffers as a result. Her return is less supernatural and more political, but the effect is the same. A wronged female figure reappears to restore natural order. Alvina, in this light, is not only a ghost, but a symbolic guardian of rightful harmony. Snow White's endurance and recovery reflect the folk belief that the land and its justice are embodied in female figures. Andersen does not have a direct Snow White tale, but two of his most famous heroines, Gerda from the Snow Queen and Elisa from the Wild Swans, serve similar narrative and symbolic functions. In The Snow Queen, Gerda chases a boy stolen away by a cold, queenly figure, much like the mirror-wielding stepmother. Gerda, like Alvina, is driven by emotional loyalty and must traverse otherworldly trials to restore natural order. In doing so, she resembles Alvina not as a ghost, but as a spirit of purity and persistence, one who refuses erasure. In The Wild Swans, Elisa is silenced, much like Snow White, and endures trial and transformation to restore her brothers and defeat the curse. Her suffering, voiceless, isolation and nearly destroyed, is again Alvina-like. A girl who suffers in isolation because of betrayal or misunderstanding, and who ultimately returns not with vengeance, but with healing. Sansa's stark in contrast is thrust into a brutal court of politics and manipulation. Her world is ruled by steel and schemes, not spirits. Yet both girls embody the Snow White archetype, beautiful, silent and imperiled, not for what they do, but for what they represent. Alvina's downfall may come from a jealous unseen force, envy, magic or fate. She disappears because he is noticed. Sansa, likewise, is perceived as a threat by Cersei Lannister, who tries to destroy her through control, not sorcery. Alvina is taken into the supernatural woods. Sansa's forest is the web of royal politics. Both endure isolation, their innocence used against them. But where Alvina fades, Sansa learns to navigate the danger. Alvina's fate is shaped by unclear figures, perhaps forest spirits who shelter or imprison her. Sansa's protector, Littlefinger, mirrors the fairy tale's twisted huntsman. He saves her not out of mercy, but to possess her. Instead of dwarves, Sansa has flawed allies, Tyrion, the Hound, Brienne, Dantos, who offer help, but often for personal reasons. Like Alvina's companions, they complicate as much as they protect. Renfri from The Witcher shares the Snow-White frame, hunted princess, exile, outcast, but her world is violent and political. Unlike Alvina, she doesn't fade, she fights, turning the fairy tale into a tragedy soaked in blood and defiance. Renfri is condemned by prophecy. Born under the Black Sun, she's targeted by a fearful stepmother and society. Like Alvina, she's punished for who she is, not for what she has done. But where Alvina is quietly erased, Renfri is hunted, defamed, and doomed. Alvina may dwell among spirits or elves, half protected, half imprisoned. Her role is passive. The world acts upon her. Renfri, exiled with gnomes and bandits, becomes a queen of the margins. Her companions are not fairy helpers, but outlaws who support her rebellion. She turns exile into resistance, but pays in blood. Alvina has no savior, her tale ends in silence. Renfri survives a would-be killer not through mercy but by fighting back. That betrayal shapes her into someone who trusts no one. She lives by her blade, forged in cruelty. Both girls are marked by beauty and shadowed by fear. Alvina becomes myth, Renfri becomes a weapon. Prophecy traps them both. Neither is seen for who they truly are. Alvina fades into legend. Renfri lashes out, her humanity buried under vengeance. One vanishes softly, one is destroyed loudly. Alvina's story offers no hero, only loss. Renfri meets Geralt, who refuses to stand by her. Fearing her potential, he kills her. In that moment, he repeats the same injustice that doomed her from the start. As the old saying goes, listen closely when the wind howls, for Alvina weeps among us. What drives the soul to remain suspended between worlds, forever entwined with the elements? In Low Country folklore, the supernatural often blends with the tragic. Alvina's story connects to the concept of wind ghosts, spirits trapped within the air, cursed to wander as punishment or grief. These spirits, often tied to betrayal or unfulfilled love, were believed to manipulate nature itself, turning the wind into their voice. Alvina is a female ghost tied to a moral or emotional transgression, often involving betrayal, family violation, or a broken natural order. Her presence is not about horror, but about memory, justice, and imbalance. She represents the enduring consequence of acts that fracture community trust or sacred ties. Her haunting is a demand for recognition, closure, or retribution. Alvina is a spectral figure rooted in Low Country folklore, often described as a ghostly or elven-like presence, bound to specific locations or people by unfinished business or curses. These spirits tend to haunt places like cemeteries, woods, or old ruins, acting as liminal beings between the mortal realm and the supernatural. They embody themes of unresolved grief, vengeance, or the cost of magic and supernatural interference. While Alvina is a female spirit of the wind, another spirit linked to the weather is de mannelijke geest met baard van het onweer, or in English, bearded male ghost of thunder and lightning. Turning to the Iroquois, Euron and Senecalor, Gao is not the wind as spirit, but rather the spirit of the wind. A vast figure, sometimes cannibalistic, often benevolent, Gao is the elder force who commands the winds of the four directions: the north's bear, the south's fawn, the east's moose, and the west's panther. These winds are either his servants or prisoners, depending on the version. Gao's home, either high in the sky or hidden in the mountain, becomes the fortress from which wind is released. When he steers or strains against his bindings, as in the Senecatl, storms erupt. When he rests, the air is still. Gao is tied to natural rhythm and cosmic order, not personal trauma. He is both a master and a captive of his own power, which makes him closer to a weather deity than a ghost. In Gao, we see a mythic embodiment of climate and natural balance. Storm and calm depending on his mood. He is not spectral, not quite mournful or personal. His wind is a seasonal cycle, not a breath of grief. In Tolkien's mythology, the elves, particularly those who remain in Middle-earth, share Alvina's essence. Like Alvina, they are bound to the world by grief, longing, or love of the land. The elves do not die but fade. They too are immortal, yet not at peace. For example, the elves of Lothlorien linger in beauty, but mourn the world's decline. What Alvina is on local hunted skill, Tolkien's elves are on a mystic fading civilization skill. The key parallel lies in the emotional binding. Both are trapped in the mortal realm due to past loss, but Tolkien gives his spirits nobility and grace, while Alvina remains a reminder of personal tragedy and community transgression. George R. R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire contains spirits that, like Alvina, reflect unfinished pain. Ghosts in Westeros often haunt places tied to war, betrayal, or family curses. The crypts of Winterfell, the wailing beyond the wall, and even the myth of the Night's King all echo Alvina's nature, souls who cannot move on because the living have not made things right. Martin's world is more brutal and less sacred than Tolkien's. His ghosts are symptoms of a world that repeats its violence. If Alvina is a consequence of forgotten ritual or a broken promise, Martin's spirits are born of unhealed political and emotional wounds. In Harry Potter, ghosts remain behind not due to cosmic fate but personal choice. They fear death or feel unfinished. Nearly headless Nick stays due to regret. Moaning Myrtle clings to a bedroom because of her murder and humiliation. These spirits echo Alvina's emotional tethering. However, Rowling often treats ghosts with whimsy or sentiment. They are emotional, not elemental. Alvina, by contrast, is rarely visible without ritual, and her presence is dangerous or sacred. Rowling's ghosts have personalities and dialogue. Alvina speaks through omen and atmosphere. Still, the central idea is shared. An unresolved personal story keeps a spirit from passing on. Among modern fantasy authors, Sapkowski's The Witcher captures the Alvina-type spirit most directly. His world is rooted in Slavic and Central European folklore, very close to Dutch and Frisian traditions. Spirits like Noonwraiths, Nightwraiths, Banshees, and Plague Maidens directly reflect Alvina's traits. For example, the Noonwraith is the ghost of a murdered woman who haunts fields at midday. She attacks not from malice but from pain. Her curse can be lifted, but only through ritual and understanding her story. Like Alvina, she is a spiritual scar left by injustice, not a villain. Sapkowski's spirits are often tied to women, trauma, and rural memory, just as Alvina is. They serve as warnings, justice seekers, and memory keepers. The Witcher use of specific place-based hauntings, ritual appeasement, and tragic backstory is almost a modern retelling of Alvina's role in folk belief. Wind ghosts, like Alvina, are believed to embody sorrow and unrest. They are said to manifest during turbulent weather, their cries woven into the howling winds. In some tales, Alvina's wails are a warning of impending misfortune, while in others they are a call for remembrance and justice. These spirits are neither fully benevolent nor malevolent, instead reflecting the unresolved pain of their moral lives. If the wind is Alvina's voice, what is she trying to tell us? If you made it this far in the video, consider subscribing to the channel, ring that notification bell so you won't miss any future videos, like the video and leave a comment below. Now back to the video. Throughout history, people developed ways to protect themselves from restless spirits of the wind. In Alvina's case, offerings of flowers or small tokens at crossroads were said to calm her cries. Some believed reciting prayers or chants during strong winds could appease her spirit. Others avoided traveling alone during windy nights, fearing that Alvina's sorrow wails might lure them into danger. Can we truly protect ourselves from the echoes of the past, or are they meant to be heard? Alvina's story begins with beauty, love, and betrayal. A princess of West Flanders, she loved her husband deeply. However, her parents disapproved of their union, even while she was pregnant with children. Without her parents knowing this, she and her unborn children were killed. Alvina's spirit became one with the wind, crying eternally. While this is a story by itself, in Dutch and Frisian lore, the many stories about ghosts and ghostly women are numerous. The Zeedijk ghost. Helena, a tanner's daughter who kills her sister Dinah in a fit of rage, to marry her sailor boyfriend. The story unfolds as Helena, consumed by guilt, confesses the crime on her deathbed, only to be rejected by the sailor. The Young Mistress, Aleid van Poelgeest, the mistress of Albert I of Bavaria, is killed during the Hook and Cod Wars, a civil war in Holland. Her only crime, loving a man that was the enemy of her butchers. The Witch of the Bleeding Wind, a witch that makes herself invisible while being transformed as the wind blows over the land, only to be stabbed by an angry farmer with a pitchfork to death. See the short of this story on the channel. Forever she flies in the winds, as long as the world stands, never finding solace. Even today, locals in West Flanders claim to hear Alvina's wails during stormy nights. The winds around ancient castles and wooded areas are said to carry her cries, serving as a reminder of her tragic tale. Some travelers report a chilling sensation during strong winds, as if the sorrow of the past is rushing against their skin. Alvina is a ghostly ancestor of Snow White. Where Snow White lives and returns, Alvina remains suspended between realms, but both figures embodies the same folkloric idea. A girl is wronged, often by another woman. She is silenced, cast out or killed. Her body or spirit lingers in a liminal space. She is remembered through ritual, nature or sacred place. Restoration or resurrection comes only when justice is done. Each cultural retelling, German, Russian, Irish and Danish, transforms the idea of Alvina into something a bit more visible, alive or redemptive. But the bones of the story remain the same. A feminine presence made sacred by injustice, haunting the world until it's made whole again. In this sense, Alvina is the ghost of Snow White, and Snow White is Alvina with a second chance. Goah, the wind giant of the Iroquois, Huron and Seneca traditions, embodies power bound by cosmic order. He is not simply a stormbringer, but a regulated force, restrained by higher will or chained to a stone. His struggling breaths becoming gales and thunder. He commands 4 directional winds: bear, panther, moose and fawn, not as poetic imagery, but as active limbs of a structured world. Even in his violence, Goah is part of a larger harmony, obeying the summons of seasons or divine commands. The winds he brings speaks of transformation, order and presence of a living cosmos. Turning to the mythopoetic worlds of Tolkien, Martin, Sapkowski and Rowling, we find wind and breath often entangled with language, fate and death. In Tolkien's world, wind is the music of the Aenir, the voice of creation itself, whispers from beyond Arda that moves across forests and mountaintops, bearing messages of doom or wonder. The Elves hear it as memory, men hear it as warning. In Martin's Westeros, wind is cruel, cutting and cold, a herald of death, silence or war. Ghosts walk with the wind beyond the wall, and every chill carries ancestral dread. In Sapkowski's Witcher, the wind is often supernatural, brushing the veil between realms. It brings omens, dread and the uncanny. A thing alive brushing Geralt's shoulders like fate itself. Rowling's magical universe softens the wind into whispers, patronuses, veils and protective charms. But even there, the breath of a dementor or the cold before a curse speaks of the thinness between life and death. Yet among them all, Alvina stands apart. She is not a god or an elemental force, not the guardian of time or herald of war. She is the breath of grief itself. Her wind does not come from command or destruction, but from absence. She does not command weather or shape seasons. She lingers. The wind around her is not natural but spectral, woven with memory and mourning. It is a current born of something missing, something not resolved, something that once lived and now won't rest. Alvina's wind is not a cause, it's an effect. She is not a warden like Goah, nor a tool of fate like the gust in Middle-earth or the North. Hers is a haunted breath, a presence that is neither wholly dead nor truly alive, drifting between. If Goah's winds shift the world, Alvina's drift through the ruins of it. Wind in her lore becomes the echo after sound, the scent that follows touch, the trace of a voice when the voice is gone. She is not the gale, but what the gale forgets. Her whispers is what left after the storm, after the loss, after the story breaks. In this way, Alvina does not govern the wind, she's governed by it. She's the shiver on the nape, the slight pull at the edge of vision, the breeze that knows your name. Her myth makes the wind a medium of mourning and meaning, not a force, but a memory, where Goah binds and releases winds as a servant of greater law, Alvina moves with the unseen laws of longing, pain, and unspoken truths. She reminds us that sometimes the most powerful winds do not uproot trees or shatter mountains, they pass through the soul and leave it altered. She is the ghost in the gust and the breath between realms. Trapped between towering cliffs, 300 ships behind and a narrow channel ahead. No way through? Or is there? In 314 BCE, Friso, Bruno and Saxo face this exact nightmare with their massive ship, the Manifold. Their daring solution? It's hidden in the previous video, and it's wilder than you think. Want to know what soaping the white outer hull really meant? Watch the last episode to unlock the answer. Ever heard this tale before? Could she have been married to King Valachijn thousands of years ago? Who knows? Dive into the forgotten stories of the Low Countries, where myth meets history. I'd love to know what you think, so drop a comment and let's talk folklore. Don't forget to like, subscribe and check out the projects linked below. From a Viking-style Frisian series to a wild bestiary of local creatures, a stunning folklore wall poster and a quirky book about where Frisian babies really come from.